Bloomberg says the US-China AI gap is narrowing faster than Silicon Valley admits. Chinese models are cheap enough that businesses are quietly switching. At OpenAI, Greg Brockman controls product and scaling after a wave of decretive executives walked excesses. Nvidia's everyone will punish the non-ARC-AGI-3. Here did the Mars marketing since someone called a toaster smart.
Bloomberg published a piece this week arguing the gap between American and Chinese frontier models is closing faster than anyone in Silicon Valley wants to admit. The argument isn't that Chinese models have matched GPT-5 or Claude in raw capability, it's that they've crossed the threshold where good enough and half the price becomes a business decision rather than an experiment. Mid-sized enterprises are now routing production workloads to Chinese models for summarization, support triage, and code generation. The interesting number in the piece is that Chinese inference costs have dropped below 2 cents per million tokens for several of the top models, which means a company processing 1 billion tokens a day pays less than the monthly cost of one American engineer's parking spot at a WeWork in Austin. I've been meaning to move my home office to Austin for exactly this reason, and also because the rent is
Greg Brockman's title at OpenAI was already president, which usually means second in command who handles everything Sam doesn't want to deal with. But after at least 4 named executives walked out over the past 2 months, Brockman now directly oversees both product and scaling, essentially every engineering function in the company minus safety. The Verge describes it as an expansion of role, but I'm reading it as a consolidation of power that nobody asked for. Right.
What strikes me is the timing. You don't restructure your entire leadership chain in the middle of a product cycle unless something broke, or unless someone got very nervous about what happens if Sam takes another sabbatical. The company shipped a new model last month, so operations are fine, but organizational charts are where you find out what a company is actually afraid of. I asked my producer if she could get a comment from OpenAI's press office, and she said they sent.
The number 100 is the kind of number that makes you want to check the source 3 times. Nvidia's AVO agent architecture reportedly achieved a perfect score on ARC-AGI-3 problems it has never encountered before. The full set. No partial credit, no asterisks. No, well, it got 97 if you exclude the 2 tasks that were essentially riddles about medieval tax law. AVO is described as a general-purpose architecture for long-horizon autonomous agents.
ARC-AGI-3 is genuinely harder, designed to resist pattern matching, but a perfect score is just a marketing asset, not science. Once you hit 100, the only question is if the benchmark was hard enough. The ARC folks are already talking about version 4. I have a feeling version 4 will be so difficult that the scores look like they were generated by a slot machine and
Nvidia's AdaptGrow offloads matrix vaccination to a single GPU, solving the intractable rolling correlation problem for thousands of assets. It handles multi-node scaling that would melt a CPU cluster, which is ironic since my last one actually did, leaving the server room smelling like burnt hair and existential dread. A scent I can't quite describe, but is definitely not the good kind, the kind that makes you want to, yep.
What's relevant to home lab types here isn't the finance application, it's the underlying technique. The same matrix fascinization primitives that AdaptGrow uses for clustering stock correlations are the ones you'd use for embedding similarity search or feature reduction in a local LLM pipeline. If you're running retrieval augmented generation on a consumer GPU and your vector search is the latency bottleneck, the tiling and memory layout tricks in this paper transfer directly. I tried implementing one of their tiling strategies last weekend and it made my
Rundu builds AI ops for independent supply stores where the guy behind the counter has been doing inventory by hand since 1987. They just raised $30 million in a Series B led by Battery Ventures, which means smart VC money decide the future of AI isn't replacing engineers or writing poetry. It's helping Gary how many boxes of drywall he needs before storm season, which frankly is more useful than my ex-wife's ability to find the remote, which is essentially a paranormal event at this point, and I'm not even mad, I'm just tired, and the drywall is heavy, and Gary and
Within 3 years, every vertical SaaS category gets an AI-native competitor targeting the boring middle market. Supply stores, auto parts, HEF contractors, the businesses running on a spreadsheet and a prayer. The winners won't have the biggest models. They'll be the ones who understand Gary doesn't want a chatbot. He wants someone to tell him his inventory is wrong before he overorders and loses money on a pallet of drywall nobody buys. I was going to make a broader point about this, but
Razorcade, Bloomberg says the US-China AI gap is a slow leak rather than a wall. Greg Brockman now runs OpenAI's entire engineering operation minus the safety team. Nvidia's AVO agent scored a perfect 100 on ARC-AGI-3, which is either genuine capability or the most confident marketing I've seen all week. AdaptGrow's GPU clustering tricks might save your local RAG pipeline from latency hell, and I predicted that AI's next frontier is Gary at the hardware store. See you tomorrow, if tomorrow exists.